I'm talking about Kevin James in this podcast about hair restoration because when I watch him on TV, the first thing that I notice, or in the movies, is that he's got a hairpiece on. What is interesting about this is that it's actually a pretty good hairpiece. It's one of the better ones. It's certainly not one of the best ones out there. It's a little too straight, and it doesn't look quite natural. But the reason why probably most of you don't know that he's actually totally bald is that he's got what's called a woven hairpiece, which grows upwards and outwards compared to the old style that grows downwards and looks sort of like, a carpet on your head. But this looks really, really quite natural. The reason I can tell it's a hairpiece and not a hair transplant is a few things. The way that it exits the scalp is not quite the way a transplant looks. It's a little too straight. And it also, although you could make a hair transplant too straight, but I have a good eye to make that fine distinction. It literally takes years to be able to understand this. And his temporal position looks receded and too far in a position to where his hairline is. So how could he make this look better? He could actually make this nowadays with hair systems and hair pieces, make it look so natural that I don't think even a scrupulous eye like mine could tell. In fact, I saw a gentleman the other day. I literally could not tell he had a hairpiece on until I got close. What the genius thing he did was that he actually asked for a slightly receded woven hair system where it was just to the point where it literally looked like a natural hairline. It was amazing, and it balances his temple. And I said, how the heck did you do this? You must have a great person that did this. And he says, well, I told her this is what I wanted, and she did it, and it was genius because it was something that even I, as the most careful 20 years in the industry looking at it, could not tell until I got within about 3 inches. And that is one of the great things out there. But for Kevin James to go back there, he should get a little bit more conservative hairline. He should have a little bit more recession in it. He should have a little bit of the temple build out, probably with a hair transplant to balance it. He should have less of a straight hairline with a little bit better angulation. But again, for the 99% of people out there, they won't even know what that guy just said. And the reason why they don't know it is because people come to me all the time and say, look, don't give me a fake hair transplant. And the one thing they don't know is that my standard is far higher than what they're coming in to asking me for. I can tell from across the room a hairpiece and a hair transplant, even by a really good colleague of mine, and it's rarely that I can't tell. A great example is actually a patient of mine that came in. I was pre-oping for a hair transplant, and I looked at him and I said, what are we doing the hair transplant for? Is this your first time? And I'm very embarrassed that I did his hair transplant a year ago, and I couldn't tell that I did it. It looked so natural. But then I realized what he was wanting is a little bit more temporal frame. He wanted more thickness into the back of the scalp, but it was a dense, beautiful hair, and I couldn't remember that I actually did his hair transplant a year ago, and looking in about 3 inches, I couldn't even tell. So that's a good result. And I have some colleagues where they walk through my door and I look at the transplant, I can't tell. That's a good sign. When I'm in 3 inches and I can't tell. Now, I don't mean when you're looking at 3 inches, because when you look at 3 inches, you probably still think it looks fine, where I think it looks god awful. But my standard is so much higher than yours. So that's another lesson, but I'm just using this point of Kevin James as a launching point in terms of this podcast to discuss what are the features that make someone look natural or unnatural.